So I'm out going to get some wood and figure I would do a quick intro to this video. This video is not one of the normal short ones. I attempted to take some video on a hike I went on today, and so I don't know if you're not from around here, if you'd find it interesting. I know that sometimes I find myself getting sucked into random videos from people around the country. I was watching one from a guy just in New Jersey the other day who's going on the AT, and I was just kind of curious what it looked like in New Jersey. So it is kind of a long video. It's about 30 minutes long, but it's kind of like, you know, slow YouTube. There's like slow TV in Norway where they just have the video on some guy fishing, and every few hours he catches a fish. So consider it slow YouTube. Some pretty good views in here. You get to see what Connecticut looks like. And again, it's not a short video, so feel free to skip around or just skip the entire thing. If you are from around here and you happen to get to this video because you typed in West Rock Ridge Park or West Rock Park hikes, I highly recommend taking this hike, and feel free to contact me or leave a comment if you have any questions or if you'd like any information on the trail system. So sit back and enjoy slow YouTube. This is my hike at West Rock Ridge Park. All right, today I'm going to show you one of my favorite hikes. The trailhead is actually in my town, and it's along a little tiny road here. In my town, 25% of it is owned by the water company. So you actually get into the trail system by going through the water company. And Connecticut has a pretty extensive blue trail system. I don't know if you can see that. This is the Sanford Feeder Trail. It goes up to Sanford Mountain. That's not where I'm going today. I am going into West Rock Park, which runs from Bethany into Hamden into New Haven. And if you go all the way to the edge of it, you can overlook Long Island Sound. And again, we're not going to make it that far probably. Actually, I can assure you, we're not going to make it that far. We're just going to go on about a 10-mile loop. Last time I was here a couple weeks ago, I found somebody's prescription sunglasses in the leaves and dug them out and hung them up here. I was hoping they were a regular and they'd see them, but apparently not. It's too bad. It's a pretty expensive set of glasses there. The trail is kind of icy. Doesn't look it. I don't know if you can tell. All mixed in with the leaves, it's all frozen. So, been a little bit slippery as it gets steeper and steeper. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. That's the top of the ridge up there. So we're about to leave the nice wide trail and head right onto the blue trail. And the blue trail system in Connecticut is pretty extensive. For a little state, you have a lot of hiking trails. Pretty much can't be anywhere in the state and be very far away from a trail, or at least here's one of the first good views. Out there, that's Madmare Mountain. If you can see that little snowy patch, that's Madmare Farm. That's Madmare Mountain. And the story goes, a horse ran away from the farm, went up Madmare Mountain, and they weren't able to find it again. And so again, we're at the northern end of this particular section of the ridge. The ridge keeps going and going and going and going all the way up farther north in Connecticut, and it goes all the way south to New Haven. And so that's the way that we're aiming towards New Haven. We're going south. This trail in a couple places crosses an old road called Baldwin Avenue. Baldwin Avenue goes from one side of the ridge, West Rock Ridge, to the other. And if you keep going that way, that's where you get to the entrance, miles and miles down the road. But it used to be open back in the 40s and 50s, maybe even the 60s. And this was where you'd come on a weekend with your family and go driving. You'd go all the way along the ridge. It's hard to see right here because this is at the end of it, but you'd drive along and be able to see for miles in either direction. There's little pull-offs along the way where people would picnic and stuff. As you can see, that's been closed down for a long time. I know my grandparents and my mom have memories of taking Sunday trips and driving along the ridge on Baldwin Ave. This is where the Blue Trail, it's one of the feeder trails. So if you take that trail there, you go up and along the ridge to the end. If you take the Red Trail, you dip down into Hamden, Connecticut, and you run south along the bottom of the ridge past Lake Wintergreen. So that is where we are going. And before you dip down to the bottom, you do get one good, decent suburban view here. And on a nice sunny day, it is an impressive view. And it's hard to pick it up on the camera because of the overcast day. But if you look, I don't know how well that's coming out. That's New Haven, Connecticut out there. And just on the other side of those big buildings is Long Island Sound. And if it gets picked up in the camera beyond Long Island Sound, is Long Island, New York. So that's the ridge that we're going to go south along. So basically, we're going to go that way. We're going to dip down through those woods right there, and then along the bottom over there. And then just before those radio towers, we're going to go up and over, and then along the top back to the car. So we've come down off of the ridge, hooked down, and we're on the Red Trail, and just came upon this. Again, I live in Connecticut, and so all of this was farmland at some point. At some point, Connecticut was about 75% forest, and then it went to 30% forest, and now we're back up to about 75% forest again. So all through the woods, you're going to see rock walls, but you'll also see this right here. And most people would walk right by this, not even recognize it as an old farmer's, a relic of some old farm. Might just look up at the Trap Rock Ridge and figure that it's the rock falling off of it. But this is probably, in the corner of some farmer's field. And this is a giant pile of rocks that they would have pulled out of the field and come over and dump here. And so along some stretch of the road, or some stretch of old farmland where you can obviously see it was kind of useless, there's not much soil that close to the ridge right there, they'd come and dump them all. It's a huge pile of rocks, and it would be sinking. So at some point this would have been much taller, along with all the rock walls. People don't realize that the rock walls that you see, especially in Connecticut, because of their age, they would have been actually taller, but they've sunk over the years. And in Connecticut, we don't have a lot of neat walls. Oh, there's another pile of rocks, if you can see that over there. We don't have a lot of neat walls. We have what are called thigh highs. And so literally, if you pick a rock off the ground and it's heavy, your arms are kind of stretched out and down. So when you stand up, the rock is about the height of your thigh. So when you walk over and put it up on the wall, the highest you can get those rocks is to your thigh. Hence, thigh-high walls. And if you go to a lot of those walls today, again, they're not thigh-high, they're knee-high. That's because they've been sinking over the years. New England, and especially Connecticut, we definitely do rocks well. So we hit this nice old road for a while. Be on this for about a half mile. It's kind of cool. It goes past this old farm, which is not obvious that it's an old farm, but what you're looking at, those kind of cranky looking trees, those are old apple trees. And so when a farmer would have moved in to a piece of land around here, one of the first things they would have planted were apple trees. I can't remember the exact name, but they were mash orchards. They would go to the cider mill, grab all the ground pulp and everything that was left over, dig a trench, pour it all into the ground, and eventually you'd have apple trees sprouting up. And one of the things about apple trees is that if you take a seed from one type of apple and plant it, you do not get the same exact type of tree. And so what was really neat is if you go into some of these old orchards, you will literally be eating apples that just don't exist anywhere else. They're kind of one-of-a-kind apples. And the only way that you can get more of them is if you graft it onto another root stock. And that's how you kind of reproduce apple trees. Hey, how about a history lesson? So one of the first really cool apples that were mass-produced around here is a lady was growing some apples in her yard, and she discovered that they were just awesome for making cider. They stored for so long. You can put them in your root cellar and take them out months later. And I have no idea what this clearing is or why they keep it cleared, but all of a sudden it's like you're in the middle of the woods. Now you're on practically a nice little road in a picnic area. But anyway, so she found these apples that stored forever, and she tried to grow more of them and sell them, and she called them she called them Baldwin apples. No, she didn't. She called them woodpecker apples, and nobody really bought them from her. And then she decided to name it after her husband, Baldwin, who was an officer in the Revolutionary War and was pretty well known. And from there they took off, and the rest is history. And Baldwin apples were grown all along, I don't know how far north and south along the East Coast, but in New England. Great eating apple, and the storage ability of those apples is ridiculous. I have seen those apples in a root cellar months and months after they were put in, and they're just perfectly fine to eat. All right, we're gonna get out of this civilized area, cross the road, and go back into the woods. Suppose if you go outside a lot and you go hiking and backpacking, everybody has a trail that suits whatever their needs are for that day. And this is definitely my get outside and relax trail. Again, you can see not a very adventurous trail, but these long flat stretches that are just buried in the woods are so relaxing. Not a lot of up and downs. Really, this whole trail, the only up and downs are really getting up to the ridge and then back down to the ridge. Or I'm sorry, up to the top of the ridge and then back down to where we are here. There's some little stretches, there's little ups and downs, which might be big ups and downs, depending on, I guess, where you are in the country. But for at least this area here, little ups and downs. Oh, those are all the mountain laurel. I realize that probably if I actually do anything with this video and post it, you're going to see an entire video of all these nice flat sections, because frankly that's when it's easiest to take out the camera. I just think they're so cool, especially in the spring, summer, early fall. There's all the leaves on the trees. You feel like you're just buried down here on this trail and this tunnel. Such a neat spot. There's no roots and rocks to trip over. There was one single runner who passed me by, but otherwise you can generally be here and just feel like you kind of own this little stretch of forest. Kind of a peaceful, relaxing feeling, Promise you, Connecticut is not all these flat, big trails, but yes, I'm on another one on this hike, going through this old pine grove, white pine trees. There's an old canal built along the side here. It's a cool little section. You can count how old a pine tree is by counting the rings of branches. So, welcome to Lake Wintergreen. Whoa. Oh, I don't know if you can see it on the camera. Looks like someone was walking across the ice. They're ice skating out there with their dog. Have to check this out, right? See if there's some old hermit in here. Wow. All right, I've climbed far away from that nice flat section. And now I'm almost back up to the top of the ridge. And when I hear stories of Rocksylvania, I wonder if it's a little bit like this. This is what a lot of the trails are like around here, not those big flat sections I was showing you before. This is where we reconnect with the Blue Trail I started on long ago. And if you remember Baldwin Drive that I crossed over, this is Baldwin Drive much farther south. And the wind is going to pick up here, which probably means you won't hear anything I'm saying with the wind noise. So maybe I'll just shoot some clips. There's the old road. That's heading north and then south up to New Haven. And almost over the top and to the other side. And the views from this side of the ridge aren't the most beautiful over here. They're kind of cool. You're kind of looking down into a little industrial area. Farther up, all you see are woods. There you go. So again, way out in the distance, that's Long Island Sound. And then the farthest piece of land you can see is Long Island. Every year you end up hearing someone who tries to rock climb this and gets stuck. And the rescue teams have to go in. Let me see if I can reach over here. So a lot of the hike follows the trail just like this. Again, right on the side of the ridge. And goes kind of straight down if you slip off. There's a lot less ice than the last time I was here. I was thinking maybe if it was still full of ice, I would skip up to the road and take the road back home, but so far, so good. Still in the southern part of it. Maybe in another few miles it changes a little bit and there'll be more. Actually, I just realized there is no snow at all around here. Up where I live, there's all snow everywhere. All right. At that last video, that was the 6 mile mark. And that other side of the ridge, that was 6 miles in 2 hours. And so without even trying, you can do 3 miles an hour on that flat trail. And as you can probably guess, 3 miles an hour decreases on this trail. It's not even like flat rocks. You kind of have to find an edge of the rock to step on. Oh, here's some dirt here. One of the reasons why I don't come here when there's a lot of snow. This is an ash tree on the side of the trail. If you can see, those marks right there, that's from an ash borer. And within a couple of years, every ash tree in Connecticut will be dead because of that little bugger. My town happens to be like the epicenter for the ash borer. And so we started getting it, I think, 4 years ago. We have quite a few ash trees on my property. And I noticed that they were starting to die. And then within probably 3 years maybe. Every ash tree that we had on the property were infected, and I don't think there's one that is still living. So we have a wood burning stove, so that's all I've been cutting and splitting is ash trees over the last few years, and we'll continue to do so for the next couple until they just are too rotten to use. And depending on where you are in Connecticut, you would not even notice it, but in my town there's huge stretches on the side of the road where even in the summer it looks like it's winter because all the trees are dead. And the town's kind of took 2 ways of handling it. One is let them die. The other is, before the tree is infected, you could put down like an insecticide that gets sucked up through the roots, and that costs a lot of money to obviously treat each tree, but it's cheaper to do that than it is to cut them all down, because now our problem is all these ash trees near the power lines have to be cut down, and it's one of those typical things where it's really hard to spend money on preventative maintenance. So now we're stuck spending money cutting them all down after they've died. Expected it to be, I think I said it earlier, expected it to be really cold on this side, but it's really warm. I've already shed a few layers. I've shed my hat layer. My hat layer? Sure, I've shed my hat, and I have my neck warmer on. I don't know, can I get a photo of that while this is filming? I don't think so. Let's see, I don't know if it'll come out. It's my DIY neck warmer. It's my $1 hat from a thrift store. Cut a hole in the top, and now it's my neck warmer, or whatever, like that bakfalak, whatever you call that word, where it stretches up over your head. These are such cool trees. I think they're called, is that a pin oak? I think this is called a pin oak. It's a smaller one, but on some of the larger ones, the bark really just such deep grooves. For those of you not native to this area, these are small cedar trees. That's that kind of cedar. If you cut that open, get that incredible smell of cedar. And obviously, on this side of the ridge with the wind, all the trees are like short and stubby. Kind of cool. All right, I'm gonna put the camera down for this part. This is one of those turnoffs from the old road. Big paved section where people would turn off at Baldwin Drive, come and overlook the reservoir. See, a couple people nicely blew away the mountaintops to put their houses up there. But otherwise, the only thing you would have seen back then is that house down there belongs to a really wicked old farm. It's not really in operation anymore, but that was around a few hundred years ago. It's this big turnoff here. This is kind of cool. Not sure what it once was, but I'm sure something connected to the road when there were visitors coming out on the road and the road was open. Some kind of storage shed, or I don't know what. I don't know. Hello? Couldn't store very much. Big sturdy building for a little spot. Oh, unless maybe under those leaves. I'm not gonna dig. I wonder if this was a bathroom or something. Maybe that's what it was. It always amazes me when I see rock walls up here. And we're way up on the ridge, and that rock wall goes down and over the hill there. And it's crazy that some farmer was going to attempt to farm up there. I don't know. unless it's just a boundary wall. But lots of rocks in Connecticut. If you read some of the old farm journals, they would make jokes about how they can grow rocks better than vegetables. And you couldn't really have a very large farm around here. And then obviously as you pass it down to your sons, it would get smaller and smaller. And so around the 1800s, pretty much all the land was being farmed that could be farmed. So the sons had a choice: move out west or be an entrepreneur, which helped jumpstart the Industrial Revolution around here. And a lot of those folks from Connecticut that moved out west went to Ohio. And I think it's in Ohio where like 50% of the legislature or something at some point was from Connecticut. Maybe it was in Ohio, some state out there. There's another view looking west. That's a reservoir out there. I don't know if you can see the cars on the road to give it some perspective. You can see all the pine trees planted around it. And if you're not from where you have reservoirs everywhere, they plant pine trees around there so all the leaves don't fall in the lake and help block the other leaves from being blown in. I don't think I've really ever been up on this trail in the middle of the summer. I think I might make it a point this year. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if that's clear or not. These are all blueberry bushes, low bush blueberry bushes. And so usually it's around July or so that all the blueberries would come out. And this is not a well-used trail, so I'm sure you can find a ton of them. Not great. There's New Haven, Long Island Sound, Long Island. If you can kind of see if I can get it with my hiking pole, right there, there's a little monument coming out from that ridge there. That's East Rock. And so I don't know if I can get it in the camera, but basically East Rock, and that's the end of West Rock, and it used to go straight across, but 12 to 15,000 years ago when the glaciers came through, they just pushed out the middle of the ridge, and so that's why you have the big opening from there to there. And all that rock, I guess, is in Long Island Sound somewhere buried under sediment. I have to show you a section of the trail I love walking on. Not just this section, but there's many sections like this. I don't know why. I love the sections where you're walking like directly on the bedrock. I mean, it just kind of shows you how thin the soil is around here. Whoop. Oh, that's actually doesn't look like it. That's all ice. I mean, it's obvious there, but all the rest of it is ice. I don't know how anything grows up here. I know in my place, I was trying to put up an electric fence for some animals. I was trying to put in a rod to ground it. And boy, I mean, I had to go wicked far from where I wanted to put it before I found a place where I could sink it more than a foot or two. And even I was putting in another fence, and instead of digging a hole 3 feet deep, I had to dig a hole 3 feet wide and put rebar in the bottom of the pole to kind of go horizontal in the hole into the cement to hold up the posts. A lot of things growing, but if you ever look at where one of these trees is tipped over, you can see it wasn't growing in much dirt, that's for sure. There we go. Here's a tree that tipped over. You're not going to see the rocks, but you can see how compressed the roots are. They didn't go deep at all. Doesn't seem like it, but this is actually just leaves covering the bedrock. And so this tree was, I don't even know how the heck that was growing up the side of the bedrock, along with that one that fell over, and along with that one over there that fell over. So around here you have to assume that every single tree was cut down at some point. The evidence is all over the place. You can kind of check this out. So that's an oak tree, red oak tree, and that would have been cut down at some point, and those would have been the sprouts coming up along the edge. You can see there's another one over there, And even these two right here, actually 3 of them right there. I don't know if you have these where you live, but those are tulip trees. Tall and straight. They grow super duper fast. Lousy wood though. Lousy wood. Produces a huge tree that can't use it to burn the fireplace or anything like that. And quite a variety of trees around here. They're beech trees that hang on to their leaves. And of course, beech trees are famous for having initials cut into them. It's kind of strange, when does something become vandalism and when does something become an artifact? That's from, 2014? And so at first I was like, oh, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, if I came past here and that was just freshly carved in, I'd be ticked. There's a huge beech tree up in northern Connecticut. Whoops, I lost the trail. There's the trail. Huge beech tree. I mean, it's the biggest one I've ever seen. Like, you can't even come close to putting your arms around it. And that sucker has initials carved so many decades back. And it's amazing to go and see and read the messages. And, it's I don't know, like if somebody had done that to a tree right now, the next beech tree was all carved up, I'd be complaining about the vandalism. But I can go to that other tree and it's really cool. Same thing with, if you keep going down this ridge, there's something called Judge's Cave, which maybe I'll go out there. It's a really cool story about that. Judge's Cave, and in the rocks leading up to it, you walk straight over the bedrock, and it's all exposed. There are all sorts of initials that are carved in there from 50, 60, 70, 100 years ago. And probably some of the founders of New Haven and all the people the streets are named after have their initials carved up there, and it's so neat to go up there and look at. But at the same time, if I was walking by this rock right here and I had seen some freshly carved initials, I'd be really upset that someone had vandalized and ruined my wilderness experience. So it's kind of interesting how everything that's kind of cool in the woods was vandalism or destroying the environment at one point. And I guess as long as there's enough years between when it was done and when you see it, it kind of romances the impact that it once had, I suppose. All right, I'm back to the feeder trail. I'm back to my car. So this is the last video on the Sanford feeder trail. If you actually go up into that ridge, there are some gorgeous views up on top of there. And we'll see what happens when I get home and put this into the video editor, if it ever sees the light of day. It was an interesting experience. I've never attempted to film a hike, and I kind of have some strong feelings about whether or not it'll happen the next time. My phone battery is about to die, so I'm going to end it here. I think I probably put the phone into my pocket at some point while it was still recording. So I'm sure when I get home I'm going to find a 45-minute video or so on here at some point. All right. Isn't that awesome? I don't know how clear that is in the video. That's so cool. That is all throughout where I live. You can climb up those. I used to hang my kids off of those in harnesses and ropes when they were little. So, Connecticut kind of gets a bad rap. Kind of like New Jersey. Most people only knew New Jersey from the highway, and the same thing from Connecticut. I think it's something like 85% of all the people in Connecticut live within 5 miles of the shore, and even like a higher number live within 5 miles of one of the main 2 highways. But once you get off the beaten path, you do have a beautiful state. All right, this is all ice. I'm going to turn this off and see you next time.